Hello, everybody. This is the Rants on the Ruling Class podcast for Primary the Ruling Class, the grassroots organization. My name is Bill. I'm joined by my co-host Todd, as usual. And boy, do
Hello.
we have a lot to talk about today, Todd. I'm
Yeah,
telling
we
you,
do.
a lot of good things happening out there, a lot of crazy things happening as is norm these days. But I tell you, there's a different feeling out there, and I know we'll get to it. But I think the Overton window has shifted, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get to it. But before I do that, I mean, I know you're fired up. I just want to hand it off to you as quick as possible because you got a lot of great stuff to talk about here.
I do. I mean, this is my favorite time of year. I love this time of year. It's football season. There's a big slate of college football yesterday. Took it all in. I'm wearing this is not an Alabama hat, it's an Arkansas hat. The Hogs won big yesterday. And then what a football game between CU and Texas Christian yesterday. But CU team went down there and beat the 17th ranked Horned Frogs that played in the national championship game last year. And, with Coach Prime, Deion Sanders at CU, I really sure wasn't. I didn't know what to expect. They've been talking a lot, and I really didn't know what to expect. But I didn't expect that. I didn't expect. They are fast. Their skilled people are as good as any place in the country, and I was blown away by what I watched. So I'm encouraged by that because it's been a long time since CU's been relevant any form of football.
Well,
So
did you explain what they just did? What they just accomplished?
what's
I mean,
that?
well, they went into TCU right in my
Yeah.
backyard here,
Oh
ranked
yeah.
number 17th in the nation,
Yeah. Beat them.
expected to roll over, and yeah, they beat them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a small thing, Todd.
No,
That's
they were 20
huge.
and a half, 20 and a half point dogs on that game and won it outright. So if you were bold enough to bet CU on the money line yesterday, you would have made a fair chunk of change if you're better. But yeah, I love this time of year. Nights are getting cooler, fresh veggies out of the garden. It's just my favorite time of year. And I know you're a huge NFL fan. I used to be a huge NFL fan. I used to go to 3 or 4 Bronco games a year. I don't really do that anymore. I'm going to my first one in about 4 years this year. I'm going to go watch them play the Packers. But I know you were a season ticket holder for, I don't know, 25 years or so for the Kansas City Chiefs. I still love your Chiefs. So I know you love this
I
time of
do.
year also.
I do. Yeah, it's a great time of year, and because you can offset some of the really craziness with some things that are kind of satisfying to you. And I've always said one of the greatest things about professional sports, actually, I stole this from somebody else, but one of the things I've always believed is that one of the greatest things about being a fan of sports is that you can be emotional about it and be invested in it without consequence.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
yeah, so
Very true.
yeah, yeah. So it is a great time. Although politics enters into everything. Did you hear Jamel Hill's comments about the Deion Sanders coaching job he did with CU there?
No, I did not.
Oh yeah, she tried to bring racism into it. She
I'm over that. Let's stop that. Who cares who's playing? They played good. Let it go. I don't care. We can all see for ourselves what color the players are on the field. It doesn't really matter. The best team won yesterday. Let's forget all the race and let's just play football. That's my opinion.
exactly. Amen, brother.
But after a good note, I mean, like talking about all the good stuff, but there's something that's really bugging me and troubling me right now, and that is I know you saw it, but I don't know if all of our listeners, seen the interview with Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. But Tucker
Fascinating.
laid out where we're at with Trump and what's going on and everything they've done to him now, and he flat out asked him, uh, "Do you think they're trying to kill you?" And I've thought for a long time that there is a offensive uh, movement on the Trump inner circle to protect him at levels that we probably have no idea about. And I think when you look back at everything that's went on from the protests right out of the gate to the Russia, 2 indictments, and he's got off both of those, and now he's been arrested, and he just continues to gain momentum. And this is not a fad. Donald Trump is not a fad. People that love what he does for this country, I'm not even going to say love Donald Trump because I don't love Donald Trump because he's a man just like I am. But I love what he stands for and I love what he's doing for this country. That's not going away. In
No.
fact, more people are waking up to it, and it's going to be here for a very long time. So to me, the next logical step for them to stop him is to try and kill him, and that bothers me. And I think that maybe is a very real concern that people don't think about.
Well, you mentioned the size of his motorcades.
Mm-hmm.
His security. We on a few months back we talked about the fact that the Biden administration had denied him additional Secret Service protection. but he's obviously amped up his own private security to a, I don't know, to a level I'm not really familiar with anyway. Dan Bongino had talked about it again a few months ago, and he's a former Secret Service agent. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, what won't they do, Todd?
He has inside. He knows dudes in the circle. Bongino does.
Yeah, he does.
He's not some outside guy like me or you that just has taken a hunch and running with it. Bongino has connections on the inside of that, I would imagine.
Bongino was on Obama's presidential protection detail. I
Right.
mean, he was right next to the guy. So yeah, he's got the cred, right? He knows what he's talking about.
Sure.
And uh there, I mean, if you think about it just logically for a moment, what this comes back to that Overton window. I mean, in years past, elections past, to start talking about the other side trying to assassinate a candidate so they could win the election, that would have been like, oh yeah, it's not even worth discussing. I mean, it's just so far out there. But the Overton window it's a reflection of what's acceptable to talk about in society. And the subject of assassination of the candidate Donald Trump is accepted now. It's in the Overton window. That's
Yeah.
how far we've come and how far things have moved.
Think
And
about that.
yeah, I mean, it's a sad commentary on our
It
society and,
is.
and the situation we're in here. But I mean, here's the thing. How can you be a logical thinking human being that really stops to give it any thought and all? And you look at everything they have done, both of the impeachments, the lying about Russia, absolute fabrication of all of these things against Donald Trump. You've seen all the prosecutions now that are just bull
Yeah.
crap that don't amount to anything. You've got everything, and we could go down a list that's a mile long here talking about these types of things. All the election fraud that they pulled out, they pulled all the stops out of all of that. Why wouldn't they consider assassination? I mean, in my book right now, if you're paying attention and you have a big picture view of everything that's going on, you'd almost be silly not to think it's on the table.
Correct.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so
If you're
yeah,
keeping it up at all, if you ought to be scratching your head going, yeah, probably is a real option for them.
yeah. Well, and here's something else. This is scary in this light. It's positive from my way of thinking of the big picture, but it is scary when we talk about this subject of potential assassination, right? Donna Brazile was on the Sunday morning news shows today. Now, I don't know if y'all remember Donna Brazile, but she is a leftist. She, as far as I'm concerned, she's a communist. I do not respect anything she stands for. I do not like the lady,
Right.
but
Me
I
either.
but I've never been accused of saying she's stupid. She's not. She's a very, very smart person, unfortunately for us. She said something today that really caught my attention because she was being interviewed and she goes, look, I'm here to tell you. She went on a little diatribe. I'll try to shorten it down. But she goes, I was around for the Reagan Revolution. I saw all those people come out and vote for Reagan and how he mobilized his base. And people were calling that a movement and everything. And I just, and it was big, it was important, but it was what it was. She goes, I was here for the Obama revolution, hope and change. And everybody got fired up and everybody moved and everybody came out to the polls. And then they didn't show up again for the second, for the midterm election. But the thing was, he got people fired up there and people were calling that a movement and, whatever. She goes, but people don't understand. What people in the Democrat Party don't understand is that what's going on with Trump is so different. It is so far ahead of anything we've ever seen before.
Right.
His base, the MAGA base, and it goes even beyond the MAGA base, but the American people are falling in line behind him, and nothing is damaging him. Even indictments, he's been indicted 4 separate times, and his poll numbers continue going up. Donna Brazile said, this is what a real movement looks like. And she went on to say, anybody in the Democrat Party, any politician, any talking head, any consultant or advisor, they better wake up real quick. And they need to understand that conventional election strategies, trying to discredit your opponent, trying to, throw mud, whatever it is, conventional strategies will not work. And our side needs to wake up. Now, she wasn't calling for assassination, I don't believe. I'll give her credit. I don't think that's what she was trying to say. but she is trying to say our side is in a bubble. We think that all these strategies are going to help us, and they're backfiring. They're not going to work. And they're not, Todd. They're absolutely not going to work.
I was just thinking, we didn't talk about this, but since the Republican Party is not off limits to us, and that's our goal, is to reform the Republican Party. Listening to you talk through that, I was rolling through stuff in my mind. What's going on with the Donald Trump movement speaks to the general laziness of Republicans on how they did not have a platform. They do not have anything to engage anybody. All they want to do is go along to get along, to further the uniparty agenda.
That's
People
the Republican leadership.
Yeah. Yes, leadership. People are wanting to engage. They're looking for a reason. The Democrats have a reason, although it might be evil or whatever. The young kids, they'll engage in that. It gives them something to engage in. The Republicans have lacked that for so very long, but Donald Trump brought that back to the Republican Party. And what you're seeing is people are saying he's going to blow the whole party. He's going to burn it to the ground. Well, my response is good. It's about time. Let's get back to the basics, to where it needs to be, and let's move forward.
He's reshaping it. He's reforming it. And there's a difference. Yeah. It's not like you're burning it to the ground just for the sake of burning it to the ground. No, you're weeding out the weeds. You're getting rid of all the corruption. You're getting rid of all the do-nothings, the rhinos, et cetera, the administrative state. I'm telling you, the biggest and probably the most enjoyable battles are yet ahead, Todd, because once we win this election, what we're going to do to reform this government, and we need to start talking about this, moving forward, maybe not today's podcast necessarily, but moving forward, we need to start talking about what that's going to look like once we take our government back, and what changes need to be made, because it's not going to be status quo.
No, big, bold changes, big, bold changes.
That's right. Everybody needs to understand status quo will get us what we've always had here. Slavery, rulers by fiat, elections that don't mean anything. And we're past that. We're absolutely past that. The Overton window has moved. The American people are waking up. They understand that those traditional things, they understand that our government is weaponized against us. It's become obvious now, and it's us against the man. I feel like a young kid again, back, looking at the tail end of the hippie movement. It's us against the man, but it really is, and it's important. It's an important battle to fight.
And who's the man? It's the uniparty.
Yep.
The people that don't stand up for this country. They're more interested in laundering money in the Ukraine than they are doing what's right for the American people and putting the money in Hawaii where the fires are at. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute here too.
It's the elitist, globalist, Marxist uniparty.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. Now, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's some good things going on, but I don't want to get started down that path yet, because I think we got a few more things you want to touch on.
Well, there's this crazy thing going on, and I don't even know if most people know about it. I've kind of heard stuff about it. I looked into it the last 4 or 5 days because it kept popping up on one of my feeds, and I was like, what does this even do? Well, it looks like, people running around in like butt floss underwear, riding bicycles with no shirts on, and it looks like Mad Max times, the movie Mad Max. It's just a weird vibe, and I've never understood it. Well,
talking about Burning Man.
Yeah, the Burning Man festival.
Okay.
Well, this goes on, and it's in the desert in a dried out lake bed. And I don't know, I think, am I wrong thinking 250,000 people show up there or something like that? 300,000?
Yeah, that's feasible, yeah.
So they set up there and set up camp, and they have them like in these quadrants where they camp. And then it's all about like self-expression and community and building a community and short. And I don't understand it, but I've seen some videos and stuff this week that they were doing like some rituals to the Ukraine, they burn big like statues and stuff, and having rituals to the Ukraine and the resilience of the Ukraine and stuff. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the next day they got flooded and now they're stuck and one person's dead in the bottom of a lake. I think there's a little bit of, I don't believe in coincidence anymore. You want to do stupid stuff like that, don't be shocked when stupid things happen to you, I guess. So it's a weird, well, maybe you know more about it than I do, but it's just I don't like the vibe. It's kind of freaky to me, but.
Well, it is freaky. Just to give some context here, Burning Man has been a tradition or an annual event now for years and years and years and years and years and years.
Really? Like for how long? I've never heard that much about it.
I'd have to go research it, but over a decade,
Really?
easily, maybe two. But it's in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of the desert. And they get out there. It's called Burning Man because originally they had this huge wooden effigy they would burn at the end of it every year. And it's continually grown. And like you said, it's an unbelievable event right now. But a lot of people talk about, well, it's kind of a hippie type of event. Well, hippie Woodstock type of thing. Well, yes and
That's what it
no. I
reminds me
mean,
of.
well, it kind of maybe started out that way, except think about grown-up hippies with a whole bunch of money, because you have a lot of famous artists that go out there. You have a lot of
Okay.
very, very rich people that set up these huge pavilions. You've got, I mean, it's become the event if you're part of the hot couture, right?
Okay.
So, and you know, there are a lot of cool things about it that you can embrace from the hippie type of culture, live and let live, and everybody helps each other. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things like that that I can live with. I can have fun with and enjoy. But some of the themes, especially over the last decade, like everything else, has become very politicized. And so now that's why you're seeing the Ukraine type of thing. You see the extreme leftist type of movements out there. And it's funny because as the whole Burning Man tradition has been, some traditionalist Burning Man would say, has been corrupted and co-opted by politics.
Like everything else.
Yep. It's almost like God's wrath has stepped in and said, you ain't going to get away with this, because this is in a desert. It never rains there. Okay.
Yeah.
Usually the problem is people have dehydration. Usually it's all
Hot,
issues like that. It's very hot. People
windy.
get around by bicycles, you know, things like that. And they had apparently so much flooding and storms and everything else. Now, I'm sad to hear somebody died, but apparently it just got washed out and they're stuck, Todd. They can't
Yeah.
get home because there's no roads. You can't traverse a lot of the mud flats that lie between them and civilization right
I
now.
guess you
So
can't. I saw some videos today that you can't even walk because you take like 2 steps and you've got 2 feet of mud on your feet and you can't, it just builds and sticks and you can't move.
yeah, I honestly haven't paid a whole lot of attention, so I don't know a lot of the details to it other than the background, but it just, it's one of those things I just look at and I kind of half grin because the Overton window is changing.
It is. It is. Let's jump into another hot topic right now that I don't think we're getting the whole truth on. I think there's a whole lot more to this story than than we know, than the media. I definitely than the media is reporting because they lie about everything. But is the Maui wildfires? I don't. I'm not comfortable with really even calling them wildfires at this point. I mean, there's, I'm getting weird, seeing some weird videos, uncorroborated evidence, videos of actual people of Hawaiian lineage, people that are from there, saying that there has been engagement between FEMA personnel and our Marine troops over there in Lahaina to some extent. And I don't know to what extent. I don't know who's been shot, if anybody's been shot, if there's been fire exchanged. I don't know. I've heard.
Have there been unconfirmed reports of that?
Yes, there have been unconfirmed reports of it, and I've been looking into it more and more, and it's picking up momentum on a lot of social media sites, and now it's getting banned as fast as it's getting put up. So when you see it, it gets taken down. So if you happen to run into one, you're pretty lucky to even see it because even if you scour it and look and look and look, you're lucky to see it one time. And if you don't save it, you're not going to see it again. They'll take it down right away. So there's more. It's a weird deal to me, Bill. I've never what went on there, the way the fire burned, what didn't burn. Uh, it goes against any kind of, if you want to trust the science, they all want to trust the science. Well, trust the science. Fire doesn't burn like that. Fire burns in a path. It does not melt aluminum wheels on a car and leave a grass 2 feet away from the car. It doesn't work like that. So there's just a lot of weird stuff that if you dig into it and trust your eyes, I don't know how dark and evil and deep it goes, but I think there's a lot more there than we'll ever know.
Well, there are several things I'd like to comment on, a few different areas of that if I could, and certainly jump in on any one of them. But there are things that don't make sense to me too. But I'm going to start off with just an overall 10,000 foot altitude view of this whole thing. Why would anybody trust the government narrative on anything?
Right. Exactly.
So anybody that says, "Oh, you're just questioning stuff for conspiracy theory purposes," no, I think if you accept the government's word, without corroboration, that's a conspiracy theory.
Yes, you're part
Okay.
of the conspiracy.
So now, having said that, I'm not convinced either way, Todd. I'm not privy to a lot of the things going on, but there are a lot of things that are real anomalous, like you said, that don't really add up. My wife and I are both very, very familiar with Lahaina, one of
Right.
the main little towns there that was burnt to the ground, basically. And I mean, I could shed a tear over it. I mean, we loved Lahaina. We love Maui. We love Lahaina. It's a different, now it's been 10 years since I've been there, but for that decade where I frequented it back and forth, it was a different experience of any place in the world I'd ever been. And it had the modern amenities, yet it was still small town, village type atmosphere, a lot of former hippies. In other words, nice people, right? Not over commercialized, not over corporatized. Many of the businesses, all of the businesses were run by locals. Most of them were owned by locals. You didn't have the huge chains coming in and out of there. And I'll guarantee you, if it was one person, there was 25 people I met that when I said, well, what caused you to live in Hawaii? I said, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Connecticut. Oh, I'm from Florida. I'm from
Yeah.
whatever. And I said, well, what caused you to move to Maui? And time and time again, I got the same answer. It was like, I came out here in spring break and I never went home.
Got stuck.
Yeah, we just liked it, just loved it, loved the low key atmosphere. You're not rushed. I mean, it's one of those wonderful low key places in the world that just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. We had one of Consuelo's of my favorite memories to this day we talk about was we sat at a bar. There was a cheeseburger in paradise, which is a chain, but it didn't feel like a chain out there. It was a local deal, kind of a Jimmy Buffett. Well, that's another issue. Is Jimmy Buffett passed away. I'm so sad
Yeah, you
about
did.
that. But a cheeseburger in paradise restaurant right on the beach. And we sat there. We had an event we were supposed to be at, so we're kind of dressed formal, and we just couldn't handle it anymore. So we left and went to grab a cheeseburger. And the place is pretty busy like usual. So we sit down at the bar. Got to know one of these bartenders. Again, another transplant that had stayed there on spring break, and struck up a great conversation. And she decided to experiment with us on drinks, new drink concoctions that she was trying to perfect. And so we sat there for a couple hours, met different people coming at the bar, had great conversation, watched the sunset over the ocean. It's
Right.
just one of the most memorable experiences, just relaxed and just really nice. So I'm going off on a tangent. I'll get off of it. But my point is this: the real estate that those people were sitting on, because most of them weren't corporate owned, like I said. Most of them were small art shops, small little travel tour groups, not big, huge travel agencies, but little tour groups that offer to take you out and watch the dolphins come in, or whatever it might be, or fishing, or whatever it might be, or arts and crafts people, or all of this kind of thing. And they were setting on some of those valuable real estate, I would guess, in the United States.
Yeah, I would agree.
And they didn't want to
Big
let it go. The
money.
tribal people that are in control out there, they didn't want to let it go. I mean, there was a big deal on the north side of the island. I think it was north side. There was the Ritz-Carlton, and they were getting a lot of flack because it turns out they had built on some burial grounds, and all of a sudden, it was a big deal. So to hear that the whole area was burned out pretty much to the ground, and to find out that not a month had gone by to where the Hawaiian government is stepping in trying to buy up all that land and buy people out,
By
it
way of
just
executive orders that were made ahead of the fires, which is another very suspicious thing.
there's just a lot of things like that. And now I want to combine it with something else, Todd. Do you know right now we're undergoing one of the largest, well, I believe it is the largest wildfire in the history of, I think it's Louisiana. And they just came out and said conclusively, no, it was arson. And it's not the only wildfire in our country that was believed to be set by arson. And there are other fires worldwide, and I'm not talking small fires. We're talking major fires going on right now.
You know what I think, Bill? We didn't talk about this either, but I think it's intentionally set, and they're trying to bring us to our knees in the name of climate change.
It wouldn't surprise me, Todd. I mean, it really wouldn't. Like I said, you have to be silly not to consider that as a possibility at this point. So I don't have any evidence on it, but when things don't add up, it's incumbent upon us to say, and keep at least a little bit of an open mind about it. So we cannot
Right.
trust our government. That's for absolute certainty. And I would include the major corporations and a lot of the quote unquote American billionaires, and not all of them, but enough of them, and anybody else that's seeking power right now and trying to hold on to power in favor. So,
Well,
yeah,
speaking
it's
of billionaires, another weird thing with the Hawaiian wildfire is Oprah Winfrey owns 100 acres of property right there by where the wildfires uh, burned,
mm,
and not one strand of grass got burned on her property.
really
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, amazing.
God must love her.
Yeah, do some digging on your own on the Lahaina fires. You'll probably find that'll probably be a rabbit hole to blow your mind when you get running down that one. Let's wrap up, Bill, with what I think in youth. I know you believe this to be probably one of the biggest. We always, I don't want to say bombshell because it reminds me of Cooper and them guys on CNN, but it is big and it's a huge story on just how big and deep the corruption and the incestuous behavior between the judicial system, our politicians, the Democrats, tax dollars, how it all is intertwined together and what they're doing with it and how they're manipulating our elections. And I'll just leave it at that and I'll let you dive into it. But this is a big story that is definitely worth following. And I say following and sharing with anyone and everywhere you can, in my opinion.
Yeah, and let me lead up to that by saying I'm in actually a pretty optimistic mood. I'm actually feeling pretty good right now, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
As many bad things that are happening, as crazy as the world still is, because as I said, the Overton window is shifting. The American people are waking up, and there's a lot of great things happening. Now, I don't celebrate anyone's bad health, but Mitch McConnell's losing power, and
I'll call
that's
him. Is this too? Can we call him Glitch
yeah,
McConnell?
okay. That's fine. Glitch O'Connell. He's I mean, he's losing his hold on power, and that's needed. I didn't mean for it to be by bad health, but it is needed because he's one of the rhinos, the globalists that have really, Chinese tied in people that have really hurt our country dramatically.
Controlled, not just tight end, controlled
Yeah, and
people.
sabotaged the Republican Party, the GOP, so
Right.
and MAGA us. So that's happening right now in Wisconsin. It looks like the GOP legislature is finally getting its act together. It's a very complicated issue. I'm not going to take a lot of time to talk about it right now, other than to say they took the first step to thwart a Democrat scheme to enable the same people that ran the elections in 2020 to run them again in 2024. And they still have more steps to do to complete that process, but they
Yeah.
took the first major one just this last week. And I'm like, yes, finally, thank you for standing up. So that's something great that's happening. In addition to that, it looks like Carrie Lake is going to go back to court on signature verification, I think, down there in Arizona.
And I
Not
don't know
sure.
the details of that. I saw a little blurb on it, but I don't know what that all entails. I guess.
I don't either, but anything going in that direction is positive in my
Yes.
book.
Good.
And there are other things that we could talk about here, but I want to, this was all a preface to lead up. Oh, and by the way, in Pennsylvania, the Democrat Party is in shambles. The state Democrat Party in Pennsylvania is almost all but bankrupt. The leadership is in shambles. It's infighting, it's arguing. They're all running around tearing their hair out. They have no idea what direction to go. And that can do nothing but bode
Good.
well for us. Pennsylvania is a huge, huge state there that we actually won regardless, except for that very coordinated effort. And if they're in shambles and can't coordinate the type of fraud they did before, at least that could be a good sign for us.
Bill, it's actually all of the swing states: Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, North
Yep.
Carolina. All those swing states are in the same boat, and I think that's what this story ties into. That it
Well,
controls all of those states.
well, that's right. Let's talk about the ones we haven't talked about yet, because something came out this weekend that, man, is just, you can always tell what the Democrats have done by what they accuse the other side of doing, right? And
Projection.
projection. And it's exactly the case here, because right now there has been, and again, I hate the word blockbuster or bombshell revelations, but it turns out that Fannie Willis, the what is she, a DA down there that's prosecuting Trump for RICO
Yeah.
charges? Okay, well, it now looks like, with tremendous amounts of evidence, that she is literally at the forefront of possibly The largest RICO scheme in the history of our country. There
Wow.
is a massive, massive Democrat fundraising scandal across multi-states, including Michigan, including New York, including Georgia, including a whole bunch of other. As a matter of fact, James O'Keefe put out some video on a portion of this via Act Blue, and all the donations that were being raised by these people. When interviewed, these people said, "No, I didn't donate. No, you're telling me I donated 2,000 times last year, the Democrat Party? No, I didn't." All of this massive fundraising efforts, raising tens, if not more, in millions of dollars for the Democrat candidates that were out of state, that weren't even in the states where all these funds are being raised. Okay. And the people know nothing about it. Well, guess who one of the largest recipients of that fundraising was? Alan Bragg in New York, who's bringing prosecution to Trump.
Paid
Also,
for. Gotten paid.
Yep, Fannie Willis. Fannie Willis? No.
Yes.
Fannie Willis, okay,
Yeah.
down there in Georgia. She's a big part of all of this. They're all tied in together. And Todd, you've got about 5 or 6 or 7 independent things like James O'Keefe, like these different reports, everybody else coming together with all these pieces of this RICO conspiracy. And it literally, unlike the Trump allegations, it literally fits the definition of RICO. And again, it'll be the largest instance of it in the history of our country. Massive, massive, massive coordination for the sole purposes of committing fraud. And these revelations are coming out, and people are listening. As much as the mainstream media is trying to hide it, this stuff is getting out. The Overton window has shifted. People are
Yes.
ready to hear this type of information, and they're hearing it, they're seeing it, and they're believing it. And just like Donna Brazil was talking about, people are waking up, and it's turning into a huge, huge movement. So
It is.
so we need to follow this story. Do not
It's
doubt.
it's a movement that this story is a piece of. But I think we talked about RICO charges for all these clowns up to 2 years ago, probably sitting here on this podcast, talking about that. We talked about that long, long time ago. But the other thing that I think they fail to realize is people are going to unify when it comes to saving the country. They're going to put politics aside, and they're going to do what's best for the country. And when we wake up to the division that they cause through sex, race, gender, whatever it is, they do their best to divide us at every angle. When we wake up to that, and that's what they're doing, and we pull together as a nation, like we were way back in 1776, when we pull that together, the game's up. And we're coming like this right now. We're not like this, but the window is coming like this, and they don't like it. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. And it's up to us to keep spreading messages like this, keep sharing stuff like this, tell your friends. And another thing, for the love of everything that's good in this country, stand up to these COVID restrictions that are coming.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy into it. Stand your ground. Don't worry about people calling you names and all that stuff. Stand up for freedom and don't be a sheep like the last time.
And if you know any leftists and globalists and elitists out there, just smile at them and wink and nod and say, "You ain't seen nothing yet."
Right, exactly. Well, Bill, we're getting along in time here, but was there anything else you wanted to go over? I think we went over everything I had on my checklist there, but
no, I think I'm good. I just have a generally good feeling, even though it's, not great times. I think good times are coming. It'll be hard. We have to remain steadfast. This is not the time to say, "Oh, we got in the bag," and sit back.
Oh no,
it's time to get energized. And
what happens when you are engaged in any sort of battle or athletic event or whatever? When you get an edge, what does your opponent do? They battle twice as hard to try and gain an edge back the other way. And that's what they're going to do in this. This is no different. So expect it to get a lot worse before it gets better. Absolutely.
Yep.
But remember, it's always a great day to be an American, and communism, it still sucks. Catch you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.